Hi there everyone, Josiah here from Womp Creations, and this week I'm going to show you how I built this Star Wars inspired radar case. Alright everyone, so my ego is still recovering from the failed thermal detonator build, and while it was probably a week or so, maybe more, for you guys, it's only been like a day for me. So you might have thought that I would go into an easy build after that to kind of ensure success. That's not what I'm doing. For whatever reason, I decided to take on this build. And part of the reason for that is because I didn't really know what to make. I have a couple things on the list, but I didn't want to get to them quite yet. And so I did what I usually do when I can't think of what to build. I'll go look at concept art. There's a ton of awesome concept artists on Instagram that I follow, and one of them, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. I think it's Matt Sav Concept, something like that. I'll have it in the description and probably on the bottom of the screen for you to read. But he's on Instagram. He's done some actual concept art for the sequel trilogy for Star Wars. And he posts a bunch of fantastic art. You guys should go check him out. This build is inspired from one of his renderings, one of his designs. And I thought it was a really cool radar type case that folds from the middle, and it has a like a radar screen in the middle and then two little like control panels on the sides. So I decided to do my interpretation of that. I simplified a couple things just to make it a little easier to build, and yeah, it's going to have some cool stuff in it. I'm really excited. So I started off in Fusion 360 to model it and get kind of an idea of how I wanted to do it. And then I sent everything over onto the CNC machine, which you guys can't see, but it's right over there, to cut out the pieces. So I have all of these pieces in front of me. And the first thing I need to do is put them together. So I'm going to sit down for this because I'm probably going to be here for a while, and I'm also going to pull out my laptop because I have all of my pieces labeled so I know what they are, but I'm going to be referring to my design so that I know I'm attaching them the correct way, lips are going over the correct way. I just don't want to mess it up. So I'm going to pull out my laptop. I need to make a little more space for myself over here. Put that there. I guess I do have the other side of the workbench. All right, laptop. Okay, so for the assembly of this, I'm going to be using some wood glue and my handy dandy pin nailer, which I haven't busted out in a while. I feel kind of bad about because I do love that thing. So let's get on with assembly. Okay, so we are working with some different angles now. Hopefully you guys can see everything you want to see. So I'm going to start with assembling the doors to the case because I just feel like that's where I should start. So I have my wood glue, my pin nailer, and I need to turn on the compressor. All right. Okay. That took way longer than expected for some reason, but It's all right, it's done now. So I can get on to assembly, and I'm so excited for this project. It's gonna be so cool if I can actually make this work. Okay, so when using wood glue on a project, you want to get as much coverage as possible. So just putting a bead down can be good enough, but it's so much better if you spread it out. So that is why I have my acid brush. Just spread it out over the surface. That way you get as much purchase as possible. Now, I have said this before, but be careful when using a pin nailer. You do not want to be anywhere near, you don't want to have your fingers anywhere near where the pin is going, because these things are super thin and they have a tendency to bend at all kinds of crazy, unpredictable angles, and yeah, just be careful. All right, one side down, and real quick, let's talk about blow-throughs. When your pin nail takes a weird angle somewhere in and comes out on a surface that you don't want it to. What I do, I have this crappy pair of flush cutters that have been broken by, I'm sure, misusing them. They're perfect for going through and getting right up against the surface and snipping off the top of the pin that has poked through. This happens quite often with pins when using a pin nailer, and so it's good to have a something to snip those off. I'm actually going to put, I think, maybe just 2 more in this. I'm not going to be throwing it around. Now they're blown through. Not going to be throwing this around, but I do not want this coming apart at all. Be careful also when you're snipping those off. Those can hurt you. Door 1 is done. No blow-throughs. No blow-throughs. 1 blow-through. Door 2 is done. Middle is done. Okay, now I guess it's time for the inserts. This is where things are going to get a little complicated. That was complicated. This is the insert for the doors that are going to have a bunch of control-y stuff on it. That's done. One more to go. Insert panel number 2 is done. Now I have the main components of my case basically assembled. I still on my, let me get it over here, on my middle section I still haven't attached the top because I need to be able to do stuff in the middle, and actually I'm going to address some of that now. Boom. All right. Our frame is completely assembled. That is a mighty fine frame, if I do say so myself. Now I can start dressing up the outsides of my sections with the trim. Alright guys, I figured you guys have watched a ton of me pinning pieces onto this, so I didn't show you all of me putting the trim on, but that's okay. It's the same deal. You're welcome, trust me. But this is the case as it stands right now. I did a loose assembly so that you can see how this is going to work. So, nothing is actually attached yet. Don't worry, you didn't miss anything major. So obviously this will be the case, and it looks a little unorganized at the moment because of the different colors, but I wanted to show you, we're going to address that. I wanted to show you what this is going to be I wanted to show you the function of this box. Wow, that was hard for me to get out. So at first glance, it's just a normal case, but these two doors will fold down just like that, and we'll have our control panels on the sides here, and then, let me see if I can move the whole thing, we'll have our radar screen right here. This is going to be super cool. Oh, the other thing that I did off camera, not very exciting, but I realized, because I'm going to have some LEDs in here, and I'm not actually sure if you're going to be able to see this with the camera right there. I'll get a close-up later, but I had to carve out a small section here for a LED strip. I just used a chisel and a hammer for that, so you didn't really miss anything. Next thing that I need to do is I need to go through and fill some of the seams, especially on these control panel inserts, with some spot putty. So I'm going to get to work on that. Then we'll do some sanding, some sealing, and some painting. So the auto store was actually out of my favorite kind of spot putty, which is just the one part where you don't need to add a hardener. So I had to get the 2-part, but that's okay. I just grabbed some spare cardboard from some sandpaper that I can use as a mixing pad. Just gonna put a little on there, and I've found that when using these 2-part systems, you want to mix a little less than what you think you're going to use. The more of it that's there, the quicker it's going to kick, the quicker it's going to start to harden. So you want to work in smaller batches. It's part of the reason that I am not a fan of the 2-part system. I like to be able to just squeeze it right out of the tube onto the spreader and work like that, but that's all right. Alright, so I have some mixed together, and I'm just going to go through on the few cracks on here that I don't want, fill those. And I'm sure I've said this to you guys 1,000 times, but when applying spot putty or Bondo or anything, less is more. The more that you put on there, the more you're going to have to sand later. So you want to keep the amount that you're using to a minimum. I am applying it and then scraping the majority of it off so that just the putty in the cracks is left. Alright, ladies and gents, all of my pieces have been, all the gaps have been filled. It's all been sanded down with some 220 grit sandpaper, and now I can go through with some sanding sealer and my handy chip brush and go through, I'll probably put 2 layers of sanding sealer on everything just to make sure I have complete coverage. I'll go over it with another light sanding, and then we can get onto some paint, and then electronics, and some greeblies, and probably some more painting, and then some weathering. I can't wait. All right, so all of my pieces have been coated with sanding sealer, and they've been sanded down one more time with 220 grit sandpaper, and now I'm going to put down some paint. By the way, still looking for a better solution to rattle cans because of the early symptoms of carpal tunnel that I'm dealing with. So if you guys have any suggestions on a better painting solution than my airbrush, because for big stuff like this, the airbrush just is not well suited for that, let me know, because these rattle cans are pretty hard on my hands. Alright, ladies and gents, my box is painted and my insert control panels are painted, and don't worry, so actually I'll tell you about this now. I realized after painting this that I made the mistake that I would say most commonly make. This is my most commonly made mistake. I designed this with such tight tolerances that I didn't allow myself room for a hinge for my doors. So, my doors will not actually be attached to the case. Luckily, they stay put once they're on, and they have a hinge-like motion coming down that it doesn't make it obvious that there is no hinge. But I don't have space for a hinge, and it's not really something that I can just kind of use a chisel to cut it out with. So my bad. That's on me. But that's okay. I'm going to finish this up anyways, and it'll still function essentially the same as I intended it to. So as you can see, this is painted. I still have not attached the top of the middle. It's just placed there for appearances at the moment. But I have my doors painted. The inside is, I don't know if you could really tell on the camera. The outside is black. The inside is like a charcoal gray. And I have my panels painted the same color. So now that everything is painted, I need to go through and put on some greeblies. This is the part that I'm really excited for. It is time for greeblies and LEDs. Now, before I can start drilling holes for my LEDs, I need to plan out where they're going to be. And to do that, I need to plan out where my greeblies are going to be, because I really have no plans for these. So what I like to do when trying to figure out what I'm going to do as far as greeblies is I'll just place them down without actually gluing them down at all, and kind of move them around until I find a layout that I'm happy with. I'm also not going to be super picky. Normally on a build like this, I would want to create some variation between the two panels. There's going to be some, but I'm not going to focus on that too much on this, just because. So I have already painted a bunch of greeblies for this, and now let's see if I can get them all over here. Now, I'm not even sure if I'm really going to end up using all of these, but I like to have options. By the way, shout out to the Smuggler's Room for these wonderful buttons. I'll show you a better view of them in a minute, but these wonderful buttons and these beautiful rocker switches. If you haven't already, definitely go check them out. Their online store, well, first of all, they have tons of great videos, so definitely go watch some of that. But their store also has a bunch of different greebly packs on there. One of the things you can get are these rocker switches, and these here, I'll peel off a piece of paper so that you can see these beautiful, I'm assuming laser cut acrylic. They're supposed to look like buttons. They don't really function like buttons, but they're these beautiful cut pieces of acrylic. There's blue and then white. But you guys should definitely go check them out. Shout out to the Smuggler's Room. Thank you for these wonderful greeblies. I have a whole bunch of different stuff here that I may or may not use. Let's see what I am going to use. Okay, I think this is it. And now I need to figure out where my LEDs go. You know, the more I look at this, the more I am questioning whether I want to actually use greeblies or not. These, I like the look of these control panels, but they're already pretty busy. Excuse that, my neighbors are setting off fireworks. Tried to film around it, but you guys are just going to experience it with me. Yeah, I don't know if I really want to add any LEDs to this, at least to the control panels. You know what, I'm going to start gluing stuff down, and if I change my mind somewhere in there, I'll start putting in some LEDs, but I think I don't think I'm going to on this one. Sorry guys, but if you do want to watch some LED stuff, I use some on the Astromech Droid build, and I will have it up above so you can go watch that. Alright you guys, we have one more part to assemble before we can say this build is done, and I've been hiding it from you. Well, I haven't been hiding it from you. I told you about it at the beginning of the build. I've just gone out of my way not to show you until now because I think it's really cool. Let me get it. So, where's the other thing? Alright, first thing, this isn't the cool part, LED strip. This is the what I'm putting in this channel that I have carved out. There we go, it fits right in there. And then I need to move it over here so that it can actually plug in. There. Okay, and now for the exciting part. Our radar screen, cut out of acrylic. This actually took some engineering to figure out. I haven't had to do anything like this before on the CNC machine, so it was a cool learning experience, but I think it turned out super cool. And when we put it in this frame, drop it down onto the LEDs, it lights up the radar screen. I'm actually super pleased with the way this turned out. It would be a little bit cooler if I had carved a there we go. If I had carved a bigger channel for more of the strip for LEDs, but I'll learn that for, that's a lesson going into the next time I need to do something like this. But I think it still works out really great. I can place the top on there now. And now I just need to reattach the doors. Alright you guys, I had a ton of fun building this and I think it looks really cool. I learned the lesson that I consistently relearn, which is not to make my tolerances so tight that I can't fit any kind of unpredicted thing in there. The hinges were predictable. I just didn't think about it until now, but that's okay. This still functions as I had hoped. Just sans hinges. It still closes up. It still folds out. The radar screen lights up, and I think this turned out pretty awesome. Hopefully you guys learned something new too. If you have any questions about this build, or you have anything that you want to see built in the future, let me know in the comments. I'm always checking those out. Please check us out on patreon.com/womprat. The link will be in the description. That is the best way for you to help support the channel. It really helps us continue to bring cool builds like this to you guys, and it allows me to give you guys some cool stuff in return. All the details are on Patreon. You can also check us out at wompratcreations.com. There's some cool stuff there for you too. Do not forget to hit the subscribe and the bell icon right next to the subscribe button. That lets you know every time we come out with a video, so you don't miss anything. We are still coming out with a build video every Friday and a show and tell video every Wednesday. And the next build video coming up is a little different. Now, you guys might have noticed that this video was edited a little differently than my other build videos, and that's because I didn't want this to be too polished. I wanted to give more of a feeling of what it's like to be in the shop making something. So it was a little bit more of a raw edit. It's not as polished as normal. So if you guys enjoyed this version more, let me know in the comments. If you guys enjoy the videos that you're used to seeing, let me know in the comments. Either way, I just wanted to try to convey to you guys, like I said, what it's like to be in the shop making something. There's some quiet time. There's time where it feels like time's just flying by. You look at the clock and all of a sudden it's super late. As always, thank you guys for all of your support. It really, really means a lot to me. Until next time, I'll see you guys later.